It's the 2020 Emmy Awards, calling out the worst amateurs in business, in public, in entertainment, in sports, fashion, products, and trends of 2019. We celebrate the amateurs with the pros' favorite night of the year. So sit forward, tense up, and be ready to recap the most amateur everything that lacked common sense, manners, and or social skills in 2019. Who will win the second ever Emmy Awards? And now, here's your host, author of the book and creator and host of the podcast Amateur Nation. Please welcome Lou Santini.
Good evening, and welcome to the second annual AMMY Awards. Counting this episode, Amateur Nation is 74 episodes in and going strong. The expanded second edition of the book, Amateur Nation, The Decline of Common Sense, Manners, and Social Skills, is available on Amazon, and the audience of pros around the world are seeing that this is more than a podcast. It's a movement. The movement to bring to light the amateurs us pros are consistently surrounded by daily. While they are not listed in any order of importance, in the 30 truths about amateurs found in the book, there's a reason the very first truth is listed as amateurs seek constant attention. Whether by actions, words, or using technology or social media to get it, amateurs need that precious attention, good or bad. And this annual award show, just like last year, tonight, they get their wish. On our terms, on pro terms. Tonight, we nominate amateurs in 6 categories, including Amateur of the Year, based on episodes 23 through 69, Season 2 of Amateur Nation from 2019. While this is a non-visual medium, we remind our audience and supporters that the trophy, the actual physical award, is described as follows. A faceless, asexual human waving his or her arms, mouth wide open, stamping his or her feet frantically to get attention, cell phone in one hand and a tissue to dry the tears from being offended in the other. Just the way the amateurs live their lives. The book, this podcast, and this particular award show is a response to the odd, annoying, and disturbing shift in human behavior and communication over the last 15 plus years. A sense of entitlement, boorish, rude, obnoxious behavior, a constant need for attention, ironically coupled with the need to be left alone. A desire to be treated the same as everyone else, impossibly combined with the mindset of, I'm special, so treat me accordingly. A lack of manners, poise, decorum, and simple common sense. And of course, our nominees, like all amateurs, span all ages, sexes, and cultures. Requirements for nomination is simply exhibiting, or in the case of amateur technology and societal behavior, contributing to at least 2 of the following factors from the amateur equation. Stupid plus obnoxious times rude, divided by entitled plus inconsiderate equals amateur. Many of our nominees will have 3, 4, or all 5. Many of our nominees could qualify to be nominated in multiple categories, but we limited them to just 1. And let's not forget the amateur mission statement. I'm special. I'm more important than all, and my needs, thoughts, and opinions are more important than yours and anyone else, and the greater good of the people trying to act civilized and respectful of others. Treat me like I'm special and different, but also treat me the same as everyone else because we're all the same. It's up to you to figure out when to treat me the way I want and how I want. And when you get it wrong, I can call you on it by making a scene, posting a mean, one-sided, and whiny comment on social media, calling even more attention to myself because don't forget, I'm special. And when you call me out on my bad behavior, I reserve the right to make you feel like you're a bad person because you didn't take the time to get to know me. Tonight, make no mistake, we do not honor, but rather ultimately call out and shame, yes, shame these amateurs into elite status. Sadly, these nominees are too stupid and or self-involved to realize they're being insulted, as they live in a bubble of self-denial and surface reassurance that they're living their best life. A nominee in the category of Most Amateur Catchphrase from last year's awards. If you are unfamiliar with tonight's nominees, I invite you, the listening audience, to go back and shake your head in disbelief at the full-length coverage of these stories. Subscribe to Amateur Nation. Email me with your comments, criticisms, and questions to lou@lousantini.com or on the comments sections of any of the 12 different platforms where Amateur Nation can be heard. Last year, the biggest award, Amateur of the Year, the biggest contributor to amateur behavior was social media. Will it win back-to-back years? Let's find out. Most amateur technology. While I've often said that I'm not against technology and progress, I've mentioned several times that I'm against thoroughly untested, unproven, and unnecessary technology. And more importantly, technology that doesn't really save time or money, but rather is just flashy, time-consuming, and riddled with defects, and usually at the expense of our privacy. These nominees are amateur in that they do life wrong and have robbed us of our social skills, common sense, and/or manners, and worse, in some cases, have made it harder and or more time-consuming to do things for ourselves. And the nominees are... Paper straws. While paper straws are certainly not high-tech, they are an inanimate object and simply would not fit into any of the other categories, and of course, a certain degree of technology is used to create these useless, ineffective, detrimental pieces of crap that muck up our beverages hot and cold. Amateurs feel strongly that paper straws are better for the environment than plastic straws, and that is simply false. As I mentioned in episode 37, The Wizard of Prose. So I'm supposed to suck something wet through paper while the saliva and pressure from my lips and tongue are in contact with that same wet paper? What could possibly go wrong? Plastic straws were invented some 50-plus years ago because they realized paper straws did not work. Bored amateurs want to take a problem we already solved and create a new problem. This is the amateur mindset. Find an easy thing to gripe about and fix it to kid yourself into thinking you're solving a bigger problem, often in the name of humanity, ecology, the environment, or spirituality. And I don't want to hear about statistics on how many sea turtles choke to death on straws. I like turtles and animals and nature, but plastic straws are not public enemy number one. Want to help the environment, amateurs? Stop buying a new cell phone every time one comes out. Amateurs create this non-disposable high consumerism culture of wanting the next shiny thing and then get pissy when there's litter. In fact, paper straws are now banned in England because unlike plastic straws that can be recycled, paper straws form a thick sludge that clogs sewers, creating more pollution, disease, and other disposal problems. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Internet-connected electric scooters for rent. From episode 29, Never Mind the Amateurs, here's the pros. Once again, what seemed like a good idea on paper was ruined by a nation of amateurs. From the Washington Post. Companies, including Bird Rides, Lime Bikes, Spin, and Waybots this spring, flooded a half-dozen cities with the motorized two-wheelers. Then came a wave of scooters behaving badly. And in some cities, the era of startups disrupting first and seeking forgiveness later seems to have worn out its welcome. It's funny. It's usually the amateurs clamoring for new, fuel-less, clean-burning, quiet, save-the-earth transportation, and the amateurs are the reason pros can't have nice things. Scooters left haphazardly on sidewalks and in front of doors are a serious impediment for wheelchairs and the elderly. Many people ride them on sidewalks and without helmets, flouting the law. Officials in Santa Monica, California have made hundreds of traffic stops because of the electric scooters and say children and adults have suffered head trauma. Look, if you have to rely on the decency and responsibility of users, you've already lost. You're assuming way too much of the amateurs, tech companies. Pros won't use them. Amateurs will abuse them. It's that simple. Rented electric scooter use is not done for a cheap, easy way to get around. It's a way for amateurs to be noticed and be smug and in the way. Autonomous cars. From episode 51, Planes, Drains, and Automobiles, the amateurs are the drains. Another idea that sounds good on paper and does indeed have military and industrial applications. Autonomous cars aren't just another untested technology handed over to a world of amateurs who just want the next shiny thing that will get them attention while allowing them to pay even less attention to the road. It's a dangerous and deadly road to go down that has already begun. From the experts at Motor Week, the weekly car show that reviews the new cars and gives you the latest in car news and technology, said this. The Insurance Institute for Highway Safety looked at how drivers perceive current semi-autonomous driving aids. IIHS found that the system names easily misled drivers into thinking they no longer have to pay attention to the road. Today, autonomous driving is at level 1 or 2 out of 5. So the systems can perform one or more driving tasks while under supervision of the driver. Taking hands off the steering wheel and talking on a cell phone were the top 2 things those asked thought they could do while a level 2 system was operating. Most alarming, depending on the system's name, almost 5% thought they could take a nap while using a semi-autonomous system. The study also showed that many drivers are not aware of when the systems are not operating, like during lane centering. Researchers said drivers badly need more hands-on training. Folks, if you think people suck at driving now and aren't paying attention to the road while they're holding their phone in front of their amateur faces like pizzas and are texting while driving, well, I can't wait to be right. Not to mention the millions, yes, millions of drivers who will become so reliant on autonomous cars that when it's time for them to drive the old-fashioned way, it will indeed prove to be deadly. This is not about people who don't love cars and driving. This is and will be an excuse to not pay attention even more, and worse, not be accountable for when, not if, but when thousands of lives are lost due to turning over the driving to a hackable, finicky, imperfect, soulless, probably soon to be controlled by a big company like Amazon computer. The Galaxy Fold cell phone. From episode 57, guest comedian/actress Mary Patterson Broom from the website Quartz. The Samsung Galaxy Fold is a flawed glimpse at the future. Here comes the Samsung Galaxy Fold, the company's and arguably the world's first mass-market foldable smartphone. Samsung's pitch is simple. Consumers continually ask for bigger screens and smaller devices. All right, the very idea that someone would say, I wish I had a larger screen and a smaller phone is beyond asinine. I wish my car was bigger but could fit in a compact parking space. Once again, Amateur Nation has created a false need for the rest of Amateur Nation. The cycle continues. Samsung asked, what if you could get a tablet-sized screen into a device that fits into your pocket? When the Fold debuted, just about everyone was impressed by what Samsung had achieved. But many also asked, wouldn't that break? Turned out it would. Reviewers reported that the folds they'd been given had started breaking, with screens going black or flickering. Samsung initially replaced those review units, saying the phone had been tested to withstand over 200,000 unfolds. Within a week, Samsung had canned the launch and told prospective customers it was going to strengthen the smartphone's screen's protection and would update them in the coming weeks on when it might actually make the device available. If you wish you had a bigger phone, either get a bigger phone or use your notepad or laptop. It's that simple. Eventually, instead of being tired of having a large phone in your pocket, now you get tired of having a larger lump and bulge in your pocket. If you're wealthy and can afford it and you just wanted to have it since you're rich, well, you might be rich, but you're rich and stupid. How did you get to be rich if you're so dumb to spend $2,000 on a phone that is not proven, will be updated and outdated in months, and here's the kicker, really doesn't do anything functionally besides folding that your older phones did. Except this one is now just one more thing to break. And if you're not super rich and don't have money to burn, then you're a different kind of stupid if you buy this. Now, let's get to the amateur need here. Amateurs love attention, and of course, what could be more eye-grabbing than whipping out a 2-inch thick foldable phone that will attract stares, photo ops, likes, comments, tweets, etc. And then that buzz wears off and you're out $2,000. The amateurs who buy this phone that will wind up in an electronics landfill are the same amateurs who ride my ass on the rare occasion I want a milkshake and need a plastic straw and I'm supposed to worry about turtle genocide. Wash A, the car wash that comes to you. You're at home. You had your food delivered. You did some online clothes shopping that you had delivered also. Now you have an errand to run, getting your car washed. But now that can come to you too. That's where Wash A comes in. But first, you have to create a profile. This is where we're at now. Amateur Technology Nation, car wash profiles. Because that old way of me handing woman behind counter money and waiting for car wash was so cumbersome. Here is a list of convenient things that I came across that could be an issue if I were an amateur and became a Wash-A customer under their frequently asked questions. Things like, apply a promo code. Yeah, if there's one thing pros love doing is jumping through hoops to save a buck. Tip your washer. Yeah, being paid online is certainly easier, more fun, and more rewarding than being handed cash, isn't it? I have a duplicate charge. You know what they're telling you, right? They often fuck up. I've been getting my cars washed since I was old enough to drive. Never once did the person at the car wash charge me double. Thanks, technology. Update my credit card. Pass. My account has an unrecognized charge. This does sound more convenient. Using cash. There's actually a link to click on that explains how to use cash. I can't sign in. Why was my payment declined? I forgot my password. My washer is late. I've lost an item. My washer was unprofessional. My car is still dirty. My washer didn't show up. Can't you just feel the time you're saving? The irony is, a car is a mobile object that is made to go anywhere, and you're having people come to it. You have to be home for this. Now you're held hostage, so to speak, because you can't go anywhere because they're washing your car. And you have to be there to make sure they do a good job, right? Don't forget to read the Wash-A blog, because with all the time you're saving, having them come to you, you can do that now. I don't know exactly how this fiasco works, but you lost me at password. You've managed to get everything done and never leave the house. And you wonder why you're depressed, because you've eliminated all human interaction from your life, amateurs. Just because you can, doesn't mean you should.
Bose Alexa.
These are sound-deadening headphones that you wear while walking around giving Alexa commands, talking to yourself like a mental patient. A commercial shows this young guy with long curly red hair walking amongst a sea of robots, so to speak. These people are dressed blandly, all doing horrible things like going to work and not talking on their phones like idiots. And he puts on his headphones and says, "Alexa, schedule a haircut." Then he says, "Alexa, play music," because we all know how exhausting it is to reach down and hit a button. The lie about this product is that it will connect you to the world around you. In the spot, you see this Nimrod seeing the world around him while his crap music plays, and people are getting haircuts, a man is trimming shrubbery, and then he sees dogs with long hair and says the dumbest sentence ever said, let alone said in public out loud to oneself, but to a piece of unnecessary electronics: "Alexa, how do I get shiny hair?" Apparently, this guy never heard of the internet, a book, or gasp, talking to a hairstylist in person. This is what amateurs want to be? Not listening to anybody, hearing anyone, not hearing the birds, traffic that may be crashing into you, just walking around while you talk to yourself? And then you get to wonder why people are rude to you and are distant, inattentive, cold, and unfeeling. And the winner for most amateur technology is autonomous cars. While none of the nominees are necessary, only autonomous cars will ultimately lead to injury, death, and countless hours in expensive repairs and updating before they realize it's too much too soon. Way too much risk and money spent for very little convenience. One person has already been killed, more will follow until this tech is perfected and used solely for military and/or industrial use. Sure, it's cool, but this chicken egg tech is a response to distracted driving and yet will be a huge contributor to more distracted drivers and less skilled drivers. No time will be saved, no money will be saved, and yet again we're sold the idea that taking the human element out of something and inserting the computer element will make everything better and safe. Shameful. Most amateur social behavior or movement. There are so many social movements, pop culture behaviors, causes, and fights in Amateur Nation. Everything is evil, unless they tell you otherwise, of course. And the nominees are political correctness, cancel culture, woke culture. From episode 23, The Birth of Amateur Nation. In an interview with the BBC, legendary comedian, actor, writer, and director Mel Brooks called the PC culture a stupid element sounding the death knell of comedy. Brooks, known for his plethora of acclaimed comedy movies, said political correctness was becoming a stranglehold on comedians. He said, "It's not good for comedy. Comedy has to walk a thin line. Take risks. Comedy is the lecherous little elf whispering in the king's ear, always telling the truth about human behavior." You know, I've heard that said many different ways, but I like his way the best. Why do you think so often audience members or fans of comedians often say, "Oh, he's saying or she's saying what we're all thinking," or "I was thinking the same thing, I just didn't know how to put it"? Look, I'm not saying we comedians are saviors or above or better than anyone, but comedians do indeed take risks. In private, when it comes to offensive jokes or material, many of these amateurs who are overly sensitive and PC would laugh out loud, but since they are in a group, looking sensitive and more human is more important than lightening up. I realize how that must sound. Wow, so someone wants to look more human and more sensitive. What a horrible thing. It is, if it's false. It is, if it's at the expense of ignoring the big three: context, intent, and period or setting in which that comedy was said. My theory on why comedy is the easy target: it's immediate. It's in plain English. If a book offends you, you can close the book. You're not hearing it. If it's a TV show you can hear or see, you can turn it off. You can't attack the TV. In stand-up comedy, messages aren't hidden or disguised like they are in music or in phrasing like in rap, hip-hop, and my favorite, heavy metal. All grist for the mill when it comes to potentially offensive subject matter, quite frankly. Amateurs attack Seinfeld and Friends, but not the slew of the over-the-top, booty-shaking, women-sexualizing, drug-reference rap and metal videos of the 80s and 90s, and the more raw content on Netflix and HBO. When it comes to comedy, one wrong word and career over. Comedian attacked, whether verbally, cyberly, or even in the case of great comedian Nick DiPaolo, physically. By definition, when you go to a movie theater, a concert, a play, an art museum, or a comedy club, one, don't you do a little bit of homework? You don't go to a movie theater and just randomly point at a movie and buy a ticket. You don't go to just any music concert. You don't go to an art museum and look at everything, or at least everything with the equal amount of interest. Why would you go to a comedy club without asking about the comedian? There's no excuse, with every comedian having clips online somewhere, and even if they don't have clips and you're going to a club as just a part of a group night out, this isn't a political rally. It's a place to unwind, and frankly, a safe place for both performer to do his or her thing and for the audience to think what they want. Keyword, think, not say. If you can't go to a comedy club to just laugh, even if you're laughing at the ludicrous ideas and statements that you don't agree with on the surface that the comedian is saying, where do you go to have fun? I've often heard, I don't go to comedy clubs to have my ideas and ideals and beliefs insulted. Newsflash, amateurs. A, usually the comedian isn't trying to hurt anyone's ideals or belief system, specifically yours. Your ideals being so right and exalted over all others. B, even if the comedian was trying to attack the ideals that you hold near and dear to your heart, and who is he or she? Are you that afraid you'll change your mind? And if you do, your ideals weren't that strong and grounded in the first place. And if you don't change your mind, so what? You got to hear an opposing view in the name of fun. Not conflict, not arguing, not in a combative conversation, just fun. Amateurs demand that the world fall in line with their beliefs regardless of how unfleshed out, unthought out, and unenlightened they are. Amateurs want what they want, how they want it, when they want it. And if they don't get it, they cry offended, the catch-all, all-encompassing phrase that makes everything right in their narrow world. If you're that afraid of words, and funny words no less, said in the guise of jokes and I'm just kidding, or pointing out the ridiculousness of life, then you're simply not going to last long on this earth. And if you do, you're going to be miserable and dissatisfied every minute of every day.
BSS, bumper sticker spirituality.
I've officially reached critical mass on spiritual, motivating, life-affirming memes. The overuse, misuse, and abuse of phony spirituality memes, GIFs, pseudo-poetry, insta-poetry, and quotes. I saw an amateur wish themselves a happy birthday and thank themselves for being in the world on Facebook. If, before social media, you went around just verbally wishing yourself a happy birthday or sending yourself a birthday card in the mail, you'd be locked up. This is not self-love. It's a cry of loneliness, desperation, and for help. Real spirituality isn't worn on your sleeve. Real spirituality and reverence is private and done through actions, not posts and copying and pasting things and coming up with banal statements full of vague words, simply interconnected and forming a sentence only because there's a period at the end of it. No one likes a phony, and I know some of these men and women who post this kind of stuff, and while they're not overtly bad people, I wouldn't call them spiritual or good or generous or certainly not humble people. They're showy. They're all surface. They're stage hogs, photo bombers. People, and especially Hollywood, mistake followers and media presence and being an influencer with being a good and or creatively talented person. And it's tiresome. It's over. It's played, and it has been for some time. It's self-serving, it's a cry for attention, and it's the opposite of humble and spiritual and so forth. True soulfulness and spirituality has nothing to prove.
Amateurs want to replace clapping with jazz hands.
From episode 64, if you don't like this show, that's podcast shaming. Good Morning Britain guest calls for clapping to be banned and replaced with jazz hands to be more inclusive. Journalist Ellen Scott says theaters should change up their policies on how to show appreciation to performances. Oh, well, I didn't know journalists had the power to make and change public and theater policy and behavior. Sure, you could argue, well, Lou, isn't that what you're doing? No, I'm trying to simply keep common sense, good manners, and social skills intact the way they're supposed to be. Well, Lou, who are you to say that's the way things are supposed to be? Answer, a man who, along with other pros from around the world, get it and agree that it's not the majority of people complaining about hurty words and asinine things like banning clapping, but rather a very loud, noisy minority. There's a right and a wrong way to spurn change, and screaming it, posting about it, and nagging the world into submission is not it. I, and pros like me, aren't pushing for change, but rather quiet. Time for the amateurs to shut up. They had their time, and it went on about 15 years too long. Very little, if anything, has changed due to the word police, safe spaces, emotional support, everything, except real social change. We've all been inconvenienced, annoyed, delayed, angered. Some have lost jobs and careers. For what? Because a few fragile amateurs can't get through the day without their whoopee. Of course, help those who can't help themselves. Of course, stand up for and give to the truly needy. But we're living in an age where clapping is bad. Well, then all car and trunk honking must cease. In fact, all car and truck noise. No driving, no TV, no movies, no music, no ambulance, police, or fire truck sirens. I'm being ridiculous? Am I? Where does it stop? Remember some of the 30 truths about amateurs that apply here. Amateurs seek constant attention. Amateurs are fragile and easily offended. Amateurs hate to suffer alone.
The abuse and misuse of the word anxiety.
From episode 53, guest, the layman video gamer, video game expert, and TV producer Scott Tommaso, this. I am absolutely sympathetic to people who have depression and anxiety, but it seems like everyone on social media now has anxiety. And not only do they have anxiety, but they revel in it. I do believe there is a worldwide mental health crisis, the real issue behind all the mass shootings over the years. And I also believe, and based on many of the studies mentioned on this podcast, that the proliferation, abuse, overuse, and misuse of social media is a large contributing factor to the vicious cycle that is Amateur Nation and depression and anxiety. More and more people that I know are taking breaks from Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, some as long as 6 weeks. Others have a no social media day each week since I mentioned it on this show. In fact, Worldwide No Social Media Day is always May 14th. Being that I'm in the entertainment field, I don't work my social media as hard as I should, but I also don't check in with it as often as I used to. I keep my posts funny, or pointed to a show or event related to my career, or if it's neither of those, it better have an angle that I normally don't do, and it's certainly not the everyday mundane activities that so many amateurs post. The very kinds of posts that are average: food, selfies, standing, walking, posing in front of things that aren't that special, but cry for attention. And I think it's those kinds of posts that are causing this vicious cycle of depression and anxiety amongst users. Depression and anxiety lead to bad social skills, which leads to amateur behavior. It's not hard to connect the dots. While depression and anxiety vary in severity and length, it is common. But the large amount of social media users that I see have posts where they revel and bask in its attention-giving glory. Users complain of depression and anxiety, but soak up all the likes and comments that enable them to keep speaking of it without really doing anything about it besides mentioning it. It feeds the ego like a very weak drug until the next time they post about it. Sadly, people who are suffering from depression and anxiety caused or exacerbated by social media think this is what makes them special. And considering depression and anxiety is so common nowadays worldwide, the opposite is true. I'm going to say this with no mean intentions. Your depression and your anxiety is not what makes you special. Millions of people have it. If you have depression and anxiety, handle it. See a professional. Talk in person to someone you know and trust. But stop verbalizing it and giving it power, especially on social media. The majority of your followers are nameless, faceless, judgmental people who can give you no real insight or help shy of clicking like and sending positive vibes. That does nothing. You should be dealing with it and the causes of it, not just the symptoms. My 2 cents advice if you're depressed and anxious, 2 things that are free and do make a difference. Get off social media for at least 2 weeks and get outdoor exercise daily. And finally, talk privately to a professional. But if you tell everyone, and especially social media, about your crippling anxiety, it just becomes your whoopee, your safety blanket, and sadly it makes you think that's what makes you special, or what makes you part of a group since so many people have anxiety. Oh my God, you have anxiety too? We should get together and talk about our anxiety. People confuse stress with depression or anxiety that needs medical attention. Bills, day-to-day life, dealing with amateurs, disappointments, lack of sleep, work, family, and relationship stresses. Yeah, that's called life. You're not special. Social media has made it that if we don't share it, and with everyone, then no one will know our joys, our triumphs, our charitable deeds, and also our sorrows and pains. And if no one hears or sees it, it's like it didn't happen. Not true. Amateurs just need to be more discriminate about what they post. When you reveal every waking moment of your life, good and bad, and then you don't get the recognition you think you deserve in terms of likes, comments, or followers, combined with you seeing how everyone else is leading their best lives, when they're just average like you and also in denial, it weighs on social media users, and thus the cycle of depression and anxiety continues. Amateurs, keep some shit private. Bringing your dog everywhere in public. Dog moms. From episode 42, Protology. Thanks, Pearl Jam. My issue isn't with women calling themselves dog moms. My issue is this: the behavior that is associated with the amateur dog moms, or dads, bringing their dogs everywhere they go, even when not appropriate or if the dog isn't a service dog, driving with their dog on their lap. Illegal and crazy unsafe for the driver, the dog, and the rest of the world. Not to mention, it's not about bringing your dog into the car. It's about garnering attention by having your dog on your lap to get looks and comments. Not to mention the dog moms who take pictures while driving with their dogs in their laps. Amateur dog moms who leave social functions early because I gotta get home to my dog. Amateur dog moms who don't go anywhere because their dog now runs the house and sets the schedule. Nah, I can't make it. I have a dog. Yeah, and? Will your dog beat you up? Stop being your pet if you go? Shun you? Amateurs with the non-stop posting pics of their dogs. Dogs, cats, all pets are going to do cute, weird, sometimes human-like things. Attention all pet owners, be more discriminate in your photo selection. You're creating internet pollution, and it's never about your dog. As is with all amateurs, it's about you getting attention under the guise of, look how caring I am. I have a dog. I rescued it. Ain't I great? No, it's been done. I've found this to be true. The more a person is wrapped up in their pet, the lousier they are around people. And this is where amateurs come back with, I prefer animals to people. Well, find your way into the woods because we don't need you. Planet Pro needs pro inhabitants. Inhabitants that want to interact, work with, socialize, date, and coexist with other pros. Pros have stuff to do. You're in the way, amateurs, as always. For the amateurs who bring their dogs everywhere, did it ever occur to you that the dog or other pet you have would like some quiet time away from your amateur ass? Especially if it's a rescue, some peace and quiet, maybe do a little exploring, get into some trouble, knock over a trash can, fart it up in private? While cats are more independent, all animals, like people, could do with some me time. Woman brings emotional support horse onto a plane. From episode 55. Guest, fetish cosplay adult star and superheroine Samantha Grace. From metro.co.uk, here's your headline. Woman pictured sitting with service horse on plane. Passengers on a recent American Airlines flight to Omaha, Nebraska were shocked to find themselves sharing the aisle with a miniature pony. The service animal, called Flirty, was seen boarding the flight from Chicago, Illinois with its owner. And it wasn't long before passengers began sharing videos of Flirty casually puttering through the airport on a leash. Another clip shows Flirty having a snooze with its owner on board the flight. A Twitter user who uploaded the video joked, "At this time, we would like to begin boarding with any active duty military, families traveling with children under the age of 3, and horses." Joked. Although many were shocked to see the little pony on the aircraft, U.S. citizens will have to get used to sharing their flights with animals following new government-approved guidelines. Last month, the U.S. Department of Transportation announced that passengers would be able to take animals on board American airline aircrafts as long as they are registered as service or emotional support animals. Airlines could face fines if they separate owners from their animals. And once again, more proof that the pros have submitted their power to the amateurs of this world. But airlines will still be able to decide whether other service animals that aren't cats, dogs, or miniature horses are allowed on board on a case-by-case basis. In the UK, the laws are a lot stricter, with only a few airlines allowing support dogs on flights. However, some companies don't allow any emotional support animals in the cabin, as they are not legally recognized as service dogs. This isn't the first time a passenger has tried to take an unusual animal on a flight. After a woman attempted to get a support peacock alongside her in the cabin in January of last year. And in 2016, a turkey made it on board a United Airlines flight as it was registered as a service animal for its owner who was disabled. Other images uploaded to social media over recent years show a pig, a duck, and even a kangaroo making it onto flights. Okay, so the first thing I do as CEO of American Airlines is fire everyone that took a picture with this animal. Secondly, I ban that woman from all future flights. The obvious. So now the comfort and rights of one passenger supersedes those of all the other passengers? Some people have severe, even deadly allergies to horse dander, and that matters not. Why? Did she have to pay for the space that horse took up? What if the animal got sick, took a shit, threw up, died, had a tantrum, or a seizure of its own? How about the safety of trying to exit the plane in an emergency, or even going to the bathroom? And what of these amateurs who posed with it? This is the amateur world we live in. Employees posing to show, look how accommodating we are to your needs now. I can't bring bottled water on board, but an animal, a horse, is okay. And in the rare occurrence, what if there was a terrorist act on this flight? Now what? Can you imagine the chaos? Just think how stupid you would feel, how angry, if by some chance a tragedy occurred because of this animal being on board. The lawsuits would bankrupt that airline. I will now never fly American Airlines. They clearly do not care about passenger safety or rights. There is nothing you could tell me that would make this okay, and I wouldn't fly free with a horse on board. It's ludicrous and insulting to the rest of the pro world. It's unsanitary to be eating near that thing. I'm sympathetic to people with neuroses of all kinds. I have claustrophobia, even the ones that are exaggerating those phobias. But your neurosis treatment will not be at the expense of my comfort, safety, and well-being of all kinds, especially on a plane that I pay a lot of money to ride on. Being on a plane and coach is now merely a test of endurance and making do with the best you have. It's not a luxury, it's not fun, and often even a good flight means I made it without any major hassles or inconveniences or problems. The seats are cramped, reclined barely, the food is up to tolerable, many flights still lack movies, and Wi-Fi for whatever reasons, and yes, while flying is a miracle, and we claim to be spoiled, this is above and beyond amateur. Shame on American Airlines, shame on the staff for pretending to care, and shame on this dread on society for making her problem everyone else's problem. The amateur way of life. By the way, American Airlines need to change their name to Amateur Airlines.
Therapy Pig at San Francisco Airport.
From episode 65, guest, actor, comedian Dennis Hemphill. Here's your headline: World's first airport therapy pig hogs the limelight at San Francisco Airport. Airports have now become just a place where you can say, hey, let's see what else we can get on the plane. Your own bottled water? No. Miniature horses and pigs? Absolutely. The 5-year-old Juliana pig and her owner, Tatiana Danilova, are part of a San Francisco International Airport's WAG Brigade, a program that brings therapy animals to the airport to cheer passengers up and help ease travel anxieties. Dressed in a pilot's cap and with toenails painted bright red. That's stupid. Lilo breezes through the metal detector at airport security and trots to the departure gates. She raises a hoof in greeting, poses for selfies, and entertains departing passengers with a tune on her toy piano. I have to assume other countries just laugh at us, right? How long before someone inserts a bomb into a therapy animal? People are very happy to get distracted from the travel, from their routines, whether they're flying on their journey, for vacation or work, said Danilova. No, we're not. Don't speak for us pros. I'd like to have a little dignity when I fly, please. I don't need to be distracted from my journey. This is Amateur Nation, the equivalent of jiggling keys to distract us from life. If there ever was a place where your head needs to be on a swivel, it's an airport and an airplane. Now, I'm not saying live in fear, but come on. Can we do anything anymore without constantly being entertained and distracted? I will not fly with bizarre animals on a plane. So I guess now part of my travel plans has to consist of me going to the ticket agent and asking, are there any idiotic animals on this flight I should know about? And the winner is...
BSS, Bumper Sticker Spirituality.
Of the nominees, the overly sensitive amateurs who complain about comedy, in my hope, will lessen. There will always be easily and irrationally offended amateurs in the world, but as a comedian of 23 years, I'm already seeing a slow but steady shift in the tiresome task of audiences feeling that they have to look for things about which to be offended. We're nowhere near where we should be, but it's slowly happening. As for the idiocy of waving jazz hands over the human impulse to clap in appreciation of something done in sports, theater, movies, music, comedy, etc., well, that simply will never catch on. It's laughable. And since the writing and producing of this episode, airlines have begun to make policy, and in some cases laws are in the works, to prohibit the abuse of amateurs who falsify reports to bring emotional support animals onto planes, and restricting support animals to dogs, and requiring more paperwork and proof. I'd like to think this show had a small part in that. More details on this much-needed progress on an upcoming episode. So that leaves us with the winner, Bumper Sticker Spirituality. This is only getting worse. The false humility, the phony love, the worst part, using veiled kindness that is copied and pasted in a flash to dishonestly purport shallow feelings of compassion, love, trust, faith, help. I have a friend who mentioned that we have a mutual friend, with her commenting, "Oh my God, she's so spiritual," when in reality, I know for a fact that our mutual friend is deeply troubled, sad, depressed, and in need of therapy, as she herself has told me personally. Her BSS could be the thing that keeps her from getting the help she needs. It's taking an aspirin for a compound fracture. Amateurs, rather than copy and paste a quote by a famous person, or worse, by another unknown amateur who cranks out frivolity, say what you mean. Take time to craft a heartfelt sentiment. Say that you're sad and want help. Don't type it, say it to someone who can help you. Don't type out your message of hope to the nameless, faceless world that won't hear your cries of loneliness and depression. If you want to spread joy and hope, do it in person with your everyday behavior.
Most amateur cry for attention.
And the nominees are... Jussie Smollett, from episode 27, Blood Sugar Sex Pro. I refuse to get into politics, race, religion, and sexuality debates, as this show will continue to maintain its focus on amateur behavior. This show is about unifying the pros and alienating and shunning and mocking those who indulge in amateur behavior. However, this whole Jussie Smollett ruse about the alleged staged hate crime against him is some of the most ill-willed, attention-whoring, illegal amateur behavior I've seen in a long time. His reasons are inconsequential to this podcast. His amateur behavior undermines and insults, and yes, should be offensive to those people who are legitimate victims of hate crimes. He should lose his job on that shit show that no one watches, and be forced to pay all investigative expenses and serve time for fraud and filing a false report. Remember the formula for amateur behavior? Stupid plus obnoxious times rude divided by entitled plus inconsiderate equals amateur? I think we can all agree that Jussie Smollett's action had all of those. His reasons, real or made up, may be his own, but his amateur actions affected many unnecessarily. First-class amateur.
Man sues parents for being born.
From episode 25, Dr. Prolove, or How I Learned to Stop Ignoring and Shun the Amateurs. Man wants to sue his parents for giving birth to him without his consent as part of an anti-natalist movement that says having children is morally wrong. Raphael Samuel said he had a great relationship with his parents, but has compared having children to kidnapping and slavery. The 27-year-old from Mumbai is an anti-natalist who believes it is wrong to put an unwilling child through the rigmarole of life for the pleasure of its parents. The anti-natalist movement is gaining traction in India as younger people resist social pressure to have children. Samuel said, "I love my parents and we have a great relationship, but they had me for their joy and their pleasure. My life has been amazing, but I don't see why I should put another life through the rigmarole of school and finding a career, especially when they didn't ask to exist." The last part of that sentence could be the dumbest thing ever uttered. One image is captioned, "Parents are hypocrites," with the text saying, "A good parent puts the child above his wants and needs, but the child itself is a want of the parent." Yeah, and? Another asks, "Isn't forcing a child into this world and then forcing to have a career kidnapping and slavery?" No, you idiot. Next question. In yet another picture he writes, "The only reason your children are facing problems is because you had them." And you could also say the only reason your car broke down and needs repairs because you bought a car, which also makes no sense. The very worst part of this is that he has thousands of like-minded sheep. I'll say what you're thinking. Then kill yourself, idiot. But he never will. And you know why? Ego. Amateurs want attention. And how do I know if I'm getting attention if I'm dead?
Trans person involved in arson hoax.
From episode 28, Fear of an Amateur Planet. Few things in life are more annoying to a pro than the boy who cried wolf type person. That classic story of the boy who cried wolf and the townspeople came running each time until they didn't is a classic example of amateur behavior. But so many amateurs apparently never heard that story because on a previous episode I talked about the hate crime hoax that Jussie Smollett perpetrated on the American public, and now here's another. As I said before, and I'll say it again, this show, this topic, is not about race, sexuality, or another kind of ism or discrimination. This show will always maintain its focus on the behavior of amateurs, the reasons why are inconsequential. This show will not and does not lump any one group together, nor does it single out any particular age group, race, religion, political affiliation, or sexual orientation. This nominee is simply about a person who didn't get enough attention, and their needs, their lack of fulfillment, their dimming spotlight, made them put their own needs ahead of the greater good in the American public and inconvenienced, disrupted, upset, and clogged the actions of pros everywhere. The headline, Transgender Activist Accused of Burning Down Own Home in Hate Crime Hoax. Police have reportedly arrested a Jackson, Michigan transgender and gay rights activist for allegedly burning down his own home. Authorities accuse Nikki Jolly, who organized a series of pro-LGBTQ events and initiatives in the socially conservative town, of intentionally setting fire to their own residence. 5 pets perished in the inferno, and the FBI investigated the incident as a hate crime, given that Jolly had allegedly received threats prior to the fire. But a police report indicates that Jolly was looking for further publicity to advance his cause. The arrest has shocked locals on both sides of the LGBTQ rights issue, especially in the wake of actor Jussie Smollett being accused of staging his own hate crime hoax in order to promote his career. Jolly has been celebrated in the local LGBTQ community for helping build a gay community center, organizing a gay pride parade, and advocating for a municipal ordinance forbidding discrimination based on sexual orientation. Jolly was even named Citizen of the Year. Okay. Whether you agree with, support, or even understand the plight and or lives of anyone in the gay community, or especially the trans community, and having lived in Los Angeles for 22 plus years and counting, I'm more and more familiar with it. Can you at least understand how vile, condescending, hurtful, and damaging this is to those in the LGBTQ world who aren't going out of their way to cause a disruption? Many, I dare say most, want to just fit in, live their lives, and do the whole life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness without the drama, crime, violence, discrimination that seems to infiltrate their daily lives. Here's something you can write down. The difference between pros and amateurs: pros just want to be left the hell alone. Amateurs want constant attention and fawning until they don't. But just like in the amateur mission statement found in my book, somehow it's up to the pros to guess, yes, guess when that is. And if the pros do somehow respond with attention, it's almost always not to the level of satisfaction of the amateur's needs. It's this simple. Amateurs can never, yes, never be pleased. The only thing that changes an amateur's behavior is the amateur. And until amateurs get consistently called out, embarrassed, and in this case arrested for fraud, they won't change. You'll notice I didn't include ignored in that sentence because ignoring an amateur just makes them more obnoxious, unruly, loud, rude, entitled, and in this story, fraudulent. Pros don't like to be spoken for. Pros can speak for themselves, and do, with common sense, manners, and social skills. Amateurs lash out with no regards to others, not even other amateurs, with no manners, no decorum, no social skills. The ends justify the means with amateurs, always. Here is the amateur brain in a nutshell. Did I get and/or do what I wanted? Yes, good. The rest of the world will fix my mistakes, faults, and paths of destruction. Woman marries herself. From episode 35, every amateur tells a story. Thanks, Rod Stewart. Here's your headline: Woman marries herself. It has been 4 years since Sophie Tanner got married to herself. Strike one. For the ceremony, the 40-year-old woman wore a vintage gown with a bouquet of sunflowers as she stood before her friends and family and promised to love, honor, and obey herself. Wow, what a commitment to being a good person. Such fortitude. Now, as she celebrates her 4th wedding anniversary, Tanner is celebrating the commitment she made to herself by writing a book about living and loving herself. Of course, why not double down on the selfish behavior? Tanner, who is a self-love advocate, said, obviously it was tongue-in-cheek, but when I said my vows promising to love myself, it really was quite powerful, and everybody said they had goosebumps. No, that never happened. Everybody said that. I need names of these other amateurs. My friends and family were all on board, and it wasn't a massive surprise. Yeah, it wasn't a surprise because your friends and family have never been surprised by your erratic, selfish, self-serving, stupid behavior. Tanner says that she was inspired to tie the knot with herself after a string of failed relationships made her realize that she did not need another person to feel happy. Okay, no man or woman is an island. We do need others to feel happier. Humans, well, pros anyway, need validation, social interaction, comfort, humor, support, love, physical, mental, and emotional connections to thrive. Sure, you can survive living in a shotgun shack in a secluded mountain somewhere, but this amateur marrying herself serves 2 purposes. It keeps her in denial, and most importantly for amateurs, gets that attention one way or another. It's genius when you think about it. She says, I don't need anyone to be happy, so I'll be alone, and I'll invite everyone I know to come watch me celebrate being alone. Did you notice she mentioned friends and family? So really, the only thing missing is a romantic interest. And maybe if she spent less time putting on a show with a self-marriage and wedding and now a resulting book, she'd find it. No man would ever want to deal with this kind of idiocy. Unless, of course, he was an amateur, and us pros know there's someone for everyone, and if you've read my book, you'd know that amateurs hate to suffer, whine, complain, and have drama alone. She says, I was happy by myself, and I had this idea of self-marriage. She's actually not happy by herself, or else she wouldn't have invited her friends and family to come watch her be officially by herself. This is Amateur Nation, ladies and gentlemen. We are becoming scared of boredom, scared of solitude. Thanks to social media, we have become more scared to be bored, scared of solitude, scared of being alone, scared of not being entertained and validated every fucking second of the day. And that, as I've mentioned in my book, is absolutely a contributing factor to the rise of amateur behavior. This woman, and while I'm poking fun, I'm speaking the truth for her own good and saying things I would hope her friends and family would have the balls to tell her. And a part of me feels sorry for her, because between this sham wedding/marriage and now a book, she's just confirming that she does need and want someone special in her life. As I've often said, amateurs claim they don't want attention, but they absolutely do. The reasons, psychological, are not my department. But this obnoxious, attention-whoring behavior has to stop. Stop wasting the valuable time of pros. When Tanner wrote to the city council, they refused to make her marriage legally binding because it was not a union of 2 people to the exclusion of anyone else. On top of that, her agent turned down her idea for a new book in which a woman got married to herself because she did not think there was a market for the concept. Tanner said, my agent said it does not fit the rom-com element, and I laughed and said that is kind of the point. Yeah, why is it I pictured the uncomfortable, maniacal laugh of a crazy person? Despite several setbacks, Sophie arranged her own illegal ceremony in May of 2015 to celebrate her sologamy. 4 years on, she is set to launch her new self-love novel titled Reader, I Married Me, which marks her 4th wedding anniversary to herself, when she will also be renewing her vows. Fact: amateurs rarely learn. My final thoughts on this stupidity. Self-love is not the same as self-respect and giving yourself credit and self-confidence. The last three things are healthy. Self-love can be, but amateurs cross the line into self-serving, attention-whoring, obnoxious, and entitled. And that's what we have here. The Language Police. From episode 62, my guest comedian Chris Strait. A woman by the name of Kimberly Jane Aaron tweeted this, quote, PSA, we are replacing an ableist term with the term dead angle. It means a spot in your periphery you cannot see or an area not covered by closed caption television. You all probably already know what term I'm replacing, so I'm not even gonna tell you. Dead angle. Use it till other people conform. Let's do this alphabetically, shall we? A. I literally had no idea of the derogatory term she was speaking of until I scrolled down like 12 replies deep to see the term blind spot is the problem phrase for her. B. One of her followers tweeted, you have the word crippled in your Twitter handle. Her Twitter handle is Crippled Scholar. What I thought was always a derogatory term. C. Who elected this amateur as the spokesperson for the world? D. We are replacing. No, you are. E. As a car guy, I read all the car magazines, and engineers and car designers take the term blind spot very seriously, and literally for a reason. It's a safety issue. It's literally a part of the car that you can't see out of or around, usually caused by an A pillar or C pillar, but nonetheless. F. As many of my friends, fans, and followers pointed out, isn't that insulting to the dead by saying dead angle? G. Use it until other people conform. Ever heard of the word please? H. People love being barked at. I. And when people conform, what will have changed? The problem will still exist. It's no nicer sounding in my ears and eyes. J. God, am I tired of weakness. Man brings emotional support clown to meeting. From episode 59, Amateur Nation, the new idiocracy. From the New York Post, here's your headline. Man being fired brings emotional support clown to meeting. This whole emotional support animal shit in public has to stop, and now. Unless you have a physical disability that having a dog or some normal domesticated animal can help you with, if you need any kind of animal, or in this case a human being, to get you through everyday life, get real psychological help and stop making your neurosis the world's problem. Here's the story. A New Zealand man facing the axe at work brought a support clown to his recent redundancy meeting. The $200 performer provided comedic relief as his bosses fired him. Auckland ad man Joshua Jack said he sensed the bad news when he received an email from his agency employer telling him they needed to have a meeting to discuss his role. Jack said, I did talk about being able to bring a support person, so I paid $200 and hired a clown. If I were an employer and an employee mentioned the need to bring a support person to a business meeting, in that instant, I'd know firing him or her was the right decision. News of the support clown stunt quickly proliferated when the New Zealand Herald posted a picture of Jack having a serious meeting with the emotional support clown and two employers seated across from him. Jack did get fired in the end, but he said his bosses at the advertising agency FCB were grateful he decided to spice up the meeting and could see the humorous side. Yeah, somehow I doubt they said that. The clown mimicked crying as Jack's employer slid the paperwork across the table and created a balloon unicorn and poodle to lighten the mood. If you need an emotional support animal in public, I'm not saying you're a bad person, but you are weak-willed and you are a first-class amateur. Because when you have intrusive emotional support beings, it's not about you needing real emotional support. It's about you needing simple attention, and amateurs live on a steady diet of attention. And the winner is Jussie Smollett. While all the nominees made news headlines, whether it's because of his star power or celebrity, no story in Hollywood made bigger ongoing headlines more than this desperate, mean-spirited, hateful hoax. The irony is that this hoax was designed to attack the mean-spiritedness and hatefulness of bigoted, racist, homophobic amateurs, and all it did was cost time and money, while the Twitterverse did what it always does, showcases more amateur sentiments and stupidity. This is a classic example of how amateur behavior breeds more amateur behavior. Sad? Absolutely. Unnecessary? Absolutely. And of course, it probably led to the other nominee who perpetrated another hoax to bad results. It's a hell of a life lesson to learn, and while I am sympathetic to the plight of minorities who truly are discriminated against, abused, and attacked, someone always has it worse, and amateurs need to count their blessings. In Jussie's case, fame, fortune, stardom, steady work, and a damn good life, until his amateur brain took over. Most amateur catchphrase or hashtag. Amateurs love catchphrases, hashtags, and anything else that can shorten their beliefs or causes, thereby saving time so they can get back to taking selfies and pictures of their food. And the nominees are... Shaming. Regarding the WE TV show Mama June from Not to Hot, please stop with the hot. It's from not to gross. As I've said before, don't shit on my cupcake and call it frosting, and calm down about the whole fat shaming thing. She's not attractive now. Just because she's thinner doesn't make her hot. And if you're gonna get pissed at me because I'm calling this nonsense out, you need to get pissed at WE TV for calling her not before she lost the weight. Isn't that the real fat shaming? This is the amateur culture of rewarding everyone for doing what they're supposed to do. In this case, be healthy. Everyone gets a trophy day. And what exactly is wrong with shaming someone into action when it comes to shaming them into improving or making positive changes in their lives? Isn't that sometimes what it takes? I got tired of being bullied and teased when I was younger, and I was scrawny and skinny, so I asked my dad for some help and I hit the gym. There's a fine line between being humiliated and being shamed. In my opinion, shaming is not cruel, humiliation is. And of course, that is wrong. Shame is to humiliation the way offended is to bothered. You're not offended, you're just bothered, and you don't even know why. You're not humiliated, you're just shamed. Shaming merely comments on someone. Humiliation destroys someone. What is so wrong with being shamed? I'm not saying shame someone just because they're different, or they don't agree with you, or look like you, or dress the way you like. That's nonsense. But the word shame is being just as much overused and abused as the word offended. Real shame, like in humiliation, it doesn't mean you simply comment or make a joke about someone. Real shame, meaning humiliation, cuts someone down to the bone. It's mean, it's hurtful, and frankly, shame only is effective if the other person feels it and is affected by it. Just because someone comments on something negatively doesn't mean they are shaming someone, but frankly, if someone is being shamed, they are probably doing something that is shameworthy. I, like many people, was always taught they only hurt you if you let them. Isn't that the case with shaming? It only hurts if you let it. Otherwise, it's just a comment. Feeling blessed. From episode 32, Close Encounters of the Pro Kind, from Men's Health magazine, an article entitled, "Thank You is Good for You." Author Dan Harris states, gratitude is one of the most understood and yet deeply useful concepts trending today. For example, if you think taking a selfie in front of your private jet and posting it with #blessed is a way to practice gratitude, you're doing it wrong. Amen. Gratitude is not about showboating, nor is it about maniacally focusing on the positive and pretending we are living in a problem-free world, like so many amateurs do. Oh, and it's also not a way of using thank you as a form of interpersonal manipulation. One of my favorite cynical takes on the concept is, gratitude is the expectation of future favors. He goes on to say, done correctly, gratitude is radically simple. It's the deliberate attempt to not take the many good things in your life for granted. Here are some other gratitude abuse examples. Let's not forget the using phony/false gratitude as a way to ask for recognition and or praise for doing the things we all do. Going to work. Putting on clothes, cooking dinner. When I see #blessed next to, in my experience, a woman showing off her new outfit and often cleavage with the caption, getting ready for another work day, #feeling blessed, I call bullshit and frankly, child. You want to show off your new clothes and or body under the guise of working, like we all do. And as is often the case, I'll see the caption, so lucky to be able to go to work and make money for my loving family when others aren't as fortunate. Frankly, I'd rather you just be a dick and own it. You want to show off your body or outfit and have another excuse to take a selfie. As someone in the Hollywood machine, so to speak, so many actors must post, not only when they are simply driving to set and have their little #setlife, #actorslife hashtags for doing the very job they're meant to do, they also throw in the #blessed, usually after non-stop bitching about not getting parts, not getting cast, and not getting auditions, and even posting pictures with #blessed, going to callbacks, or even simply auditions. It's pitiful. Fellow actors and entertainers, do you see a lot of the true pros, the seasoned veterans of Hollywood, posting every mundane step-by-step action of their jobs? Is it no coincidence? They're doing your posting. While I'm sure this pattern of posting the most mediocre of work-related events hashtagged photos is more problematic and symptomatic of Hollywood and entertainers, it does exist outside of entertainment as well, and it's equally boring and obnoxious and unnecessary. It's one thing to be appreciative and grateful for the little things. It's amateur to constantly be broadcasting it for attention and reassurance, because then it's not about gratitude, it's a cry for help and an admission of boredom and unfulfillment. This goes right in line with the men and women who post selfies of themselves flexing, posing, sticking their tits and asses out, showing their abs, etc., and then lying to themselves that they're humble by posting #blessed and some benign statement of how lucky I am to be able to move and exercise when others are not as fortunate. Handicapped people should be repulsed and insulted because I know I am, and the more I see someone thinking they're a model when they're not and not owning up to it, the more sad and depressed I assume they are. Just once, if I could see a sexy girl post, I gotta say, I love my tits. Obnoxious? Yes. But at least you're not trying to shit on my cupcake and call it frosting by claiming humility and gratitude. Or a dude with his shirt lifted and a caption, I starved myself, worked hard, maintained discipline to get like this, and hopefully some dumb girl will want me for at least a weekend. I might be thinking, what a tool, but at least he'd be an honest tool.
Empowerment.
From episode 40, Pimp a Pro Nation. I go to the gym and I see men wearing shirts that read alpha as fuck and women wearing t-shirts that read pussy power. Everyone's empowered, but yet everyone's equal and the same and should be judged equally, but yet everyone's persecuted and a victim. Explain what other pros and the rest of the world are supposed to do when you have to announce your so-called power obnoxiously and literally wear it on your shirt. Real power and empowerment doesn't need to announce it as such. Actions, inner resolve, leadership, without having to remind everyone that you have this pseudo-power. Recently, I saw this tripe posted on social media. Women who sleep alone aren't lonely. They do it by choice because they know their worth. Okay, so what is your worth? Tell me what it is. Basically, what you're saying is, I haven't found the right person yet, and I don't want to make the wrong choice. And there's nothing wrong with that. But this bullshit posturing, this bumper sticker spirituality, and constant proclaiming how strong you are, male or female, gay or straight, is self-entitled, obnoxious, and thusly amateur. You're sleeping alone because with that mouth and attitude, no man wants to listen to your shit, okay? Keep denying. And I do agree that no person should simply settle. No female, male, gay, or straight should settle for the wrong person. But the real attitude here, the real amateur message with empowerment is, I'm better than you, without any real reasons or proof to back it up. And frankly, if you were better than me as a human being, you wouldn't feel the need to announce it because people like that have nothing to prove. Confidence is not showboating or yelling how confident you are from the rooftops. That's not confidence. That's obnoxious. That is bragging. And as always, it's a cry for attention and validation. And frankly, it's probably incorrect. Maybe a little less empowerment and more humility. Eh, amateurs? Journey. Not the band, but rather the overused bumper sticker spirituality word that creates the need for acceptance, recognition, and attention for any work or event that happens to an amateur. I've been a professional stand-up comedian for about 23 years. I've been in the entertainment business going back to my days on the radio and TV in Northeast Ohio for 34 years. It's been hard, rewarding, exciting, depressing, physically, mentally, and emotionally exhausting at times. I've had breaks both big and small, and periods of time with no breaks at all, getting me to the edge of quitting and settling for the predictable life of a cubicle dweller. I've had odd jobs, manual labor jobs, desk jobs, and other jobs that could have led to other possible careers to keep my head above water while I made my entertainment career by sole means of support. And through it all, I never referred to my career and entertainment endeavors as a journey, because it's not. It's work. Hard work, and often it has been a labor of love. It's late nights, long hours, years of getting nowhere, followed by days that let some light in and gave me a renewed hope and strength to push on. It's encouragement from my friends, family, and fans and audiences, both on stage and off. But it's never been a journey, and I'm not talking semantics here, but for amateurs calling any struggle, any endeavor, any task large or small, ongoing or brief, a journey makes it more important and big. Amateurs love feeling important. I recently saw a young woman, relatively new to comedy, do what many comedians do every night, perform on a stage, and then she has to post a photo outside the club with the sentiment about how she's so grateful to be on this journey. And really, she should be posting, "I need encouragement and praise for doing what thousands of comedians do around the world every night because I probably suck." It's called going to work and doing your job, like millions of people do every day, some working at their passion, some just trying to pay bills and feed their families or even just themselves. Pausing to take a picture to do the job you're supposed to do and adding "my journey" hashtags to everything does not make you spiritual. It makes you an amateur. Be appreciative, quietly, in private. People don't need to hear about every stop on your journey. You're simply not that important or special. Amateurs, just do your job and shut the fuck up. And the winner is...
Empowerment.
While feeling blessed is tiresome and phony, the false movement of empowerment is tiresome, phony, and intrusive, and thus our winner this year. Empowerment is now an excuse to be rude, act badly, and not apologize for wrongdoing, and basically used as an all-encompassing term for any and all amateur behavior, including forcing beliefs and issues down your throat, hiding and excusing rude behavior, not apologizing, and the most ridiculous as a much-too-late response to an injustice, personal or societal, that happened years ago that has no direct effect on the person acting empowered. The amateur version of empowerment has nothing to do with strength and resolve, but rather bulldozing one's way through life without regard to the rest of us pros. Most amateur stunt of the year. Amateurs, like pros, do stupid things all the time. The difference is, amateurs go out of their way to do stupid things, and then think nothing of the consequences, usually because they're too busy thinking, "I wonder how many followers and or likes this will get me." And the nominees are... Jaguar attacks woman trying to take selfie at the zoo. From episode 30, Pro's Labyrinth. A selfie-seeking lady tried to take a photo with a jaguar by breaching the big cat's enclosure at an Arizona zoo and got her arm mauled in the process. Rural Metro fire officials said the woman in her 30s was trying to take a photo of herself near the fence of the jaguar enclosure at the Wildlife World Zoo in Maricopa County when the animal swiped at her arm. Video of the aftermath shows the woman with a deep gash in her arm writhing on the ground and moaning in pain. Witnesses told zoo officials the woman had crossed over the barrier to get her picture. See? Amateurs. The rules don't apply to them. Didn't you know that? See also, amateurs who ride their bikes on sidewalks and across crosswalks, amateurs who drive cars with pets on their laps, drive while texting, etc. Please understand why barriers are put in place. Sending prayers to the family tonight, the zoo tweeted. All right, look, if you must pray for the family, here's an example of how that prayer should really go. Dear God, I know you're a pro, the lead pro, in fact. So please give this amateur and all amateurs the common sense to maybe not try to get close to a wild, violent killing machine to take a selfie, even when there are signs and barriers to prevent that from happening. Oh wait, never mind. You shouldn't need to respond to a prayer like that because it's common sense not to get close to a jaguar. Sorry to bother you, God. I'd like to revise my prayer and have you please bless and watch over all the pros who have to deal with these fucking Nimrods and handle the collateral damage dispensed after they act like self-centered idiots. Sorry about the language. Amen. Now that the amateur has had time to not think, but rather learn nothing from her idiotic behavior, the woman apologized, but not without saying, "But I do feel that the zoo should move the fence back even though the fence was coherent to federal regulations." Why would anyone need to pray for someone this stupid? It's never the amateur's fault. We pros wind up having to adjust to them. Amateurs rarely change their behavior, and only an amateur can change their own behavior. This amateur was mauled by a jaguar, not while she was minding her own business, not while at work at her desk, but while engaging in selfish, careless, stupid, dangerous behavior, and she learned nothing. Man records himself stealing a police car on Instagram. From episode 31, Pros Don't Cry, the episode technology and Prius lovers will hate. Prepare to sigh, pros. Here's your headline. Atlanta man records himself stealing police car on Instagram. A video posted on Instagram and World Star Hip Hop shows a man in Georgia recording himself stealing a police car and taking it for a joyride. The man in the video walks up to the car, left with the door open and the engine running, after the officer driving it jumped out to chase a suspect into a neighborhood. The joyrider brought the car back before the officer even noticed it was gone, so police had no idea it even happened until someone posted the video on social media. Remember the amateur equation? Stupid plus obnoxious times rude divided by entitled plus inconsiderate equals amateur? This one ticks all the boxes. Suppose the cop comes back with a suspect he or she's been chasing while putting his or her life on the line to keep the streets safe from amateurs like this guy, and the officer comes back to find no car. Of course, the suspect is in cuffs and the officer can call for backup and help, but suppose the suspect or officer was injured badly and or dying with every second counting for medical attention. What if the victim of the suspect was your family member? The car thief brought the car back before the officer even noticed it was gone, but that's not the point. Here's food for thought. Let's say this amateur takes the cop car for a joyride and then crashes, kills, or even just injures himself or others or your family or friend. You can't tell me in this amateur nation that the thief would sue the police department because the officer left an open running car out in the open. Somehow it would have been the officers, the pros' fault. You know I'm right. Yet again, the pros having to adjust and deal with the aftermath of amateur behavior.
YouTube star tricks homeless man into eating toothpaste-filled cookie.
From episode 37, The Wizard of Prose. Here's your story. A Spanish YouTube star who pranked a homeless man by filling an Oreo cookie with toothpaste was sentenced to 15 months in prison and now owes $22,300 to his victim, the New York Times reported. Let's make one thing clear, folks. If the word YouTube is in front of the word star, you're not a star. Just because you have 1 million followers or hits doesn't mean you have any discernible talent. Let's see how many people would pay to come see you do whatever it is you do live in front of an audience or on TV where ratings and stakes are high. Week after week, month after month, year after year, no less. How much of a scumbag do you have to be to fuck with the homeless? How much of a bottom-feeding asshole with no regard to humanity and dignity do you have to be and have to make someone's life, whose life is already a day-to-day, hour-by-hour, and often minute-by-minute struggle, even worse? A Barcelona judge also ordered that Kangwa Ren's YouTube and other social media accounts be shut down for 5 years. That is a pro move. Denying this asshole the attention he clearly needs is the right way to go, provided he can't start another page, that is. Ren posted a since-deleted video to his YouTube channel in which he is seen filling Oreo cookies with toothpaste and repackaging them as a prank to impress his 1.2 million amateur followers. The prank took a turn for the worse when he handed the cookie, along with 20 euros, to a homeless man identified as George L., who proceeded to eat them and vomit afterwards. In the video, Ren can be heard contemplating whether he has gone too far with the prank. He said, "But look at the positive side. This will help him clean his teeth. I think he hasn't cleaned them since he became poor." George L., a native of Romania who fled his country to escape the communist dictatorship and was later hospitalized at a mental institution, said he had never been treated so poorly while living on the street, according to a report by the El País newspaper. After the video received negative feedback from his followers, Ren attempted to make amends by filming a subsequent video where he visits the homeless man again and offers him 20 more euros. Ren made a third visit after that, offering the man's daughter 300 euros to prevent her from filing a lawsuit. Ren defended his videos to the court, saying, "I do things to mount a show. People like what is morbid." And here's where I reiterate that amateurs rarely change their behavior. He goes back to offer a measly 20 euros for robbing this man of his dignity and making him sick, then basically tries to bribe him for an even more pitiful amount. When he makes nearly $2,500 from advertising from that particular episode, shame on him. Shame on him and his parents and on YouTube for supplying him with advertisers. If I were the homeless man, I'd find a lawyer willing to sue YouTube as well for facilitating this. So much laziness, entitlement, and absolute lack of accountability in the world of amateurs. While I'm not condoning violence, I've known these types of cruel blights on society, and this kid is a monumental beatdown coming from someone. He's going to mess with the wrong person, and someone's going to pull his card.
Woman jumps gate, teases lion at zoo.
No, this isn't the same story of the previous jaguar incident at the Arizona Zoo. Different amateur, different wild animal. The story comes from NBCnews.com. A statement from the Bronx Zoo said they in no way condone this type of behavior. 6ABC.com says the zoo actually has a zero-tolerance policy for it. Well, yeah, I would hope so. At the risk of sounding unpopular, I'm sorry, do we need this woman? Really? Is her life valuable? What purpose do we need this liability on Earth? What, because she might have parents or a husband or kids that love her, that makes her valuable and important enough to not throw her to the lions? If, and I mean if she does have a family that loves her, that makes her more of an amateur because her need for attention came before thinking about her loved ones. Do you know how horrific the death of being mauled by a lion would be? It's not instant. It's agonizing, terrifying, painful, lots of suffering. I had a friend mauled by a stray dog once, and she could have died and was traumatized for years. And what if this amateur would have been attacked and then lived with horrible pain, scarring, and a daily reminder of her stupidity, the financial burden on her family, and of course, she would have sued the zoo, the same way that the woman in Arizona admonished the zoo for not doing a better job of keeping amateurs like her out. Think of the chaos that would have ensued if she was attacked. The adults and children who would see that horrific event, it would be burned in their brains forever. Then, of course, the lion, doing what comes naturally, would have been put down, and then the amateurs would have blasted the zoo on social media for doing the right thing and protecting the lives of everyone else. It wouldn't be fair, but let's face it, it would need to be done. Amateur behavior breeds more amateur behavior. And the winner is...
Jaguar attacks woman trying to take selfie at the zoo, and woman jumps over gate, teases lion at zoo.
We have the first tie ever for an Emmy Award. All the nominees in this category were stupid, of course. The moron who abused the homeless man was reprehensible. But the two women who taunted wild predatory cats at zoos win for two reasons. One, it proves that amateur behavior breeds more amateur behavior. And two, it proves that amateur behavior can span a nation. One in Arizona, the other idiot in New York. And now the moment we've all been waiting for.
The 2019 Amateur of the Year.
The nominees are
Autonomous Cars. Jussie Smollett. Empowerment. The Women Who Provoked Predatory Cats at Zoos. Bumper Sticker Spirituality.
When choosing the Amateur of the Year award, the biggest factor is simply this. Which of these nominees that won in each of their categories contributed to amateur behavior on the grandest scale? We have autonomous cars. While a horrible idea, an absolutely unproven, thoroughly untested technology to put into the hands of unskilled civilians lacks any common sense, it's not quite prolific enough to be the largest contributor to Amateur Nation. Then you have Jussie Smollett. While a complete amateur and probably the perpetrator of one of the more despicable amateur actions, has finally faded from the spotlight, for now at least, and while there have been similar stories, the amateur hoax movement seemed to get cut off at the pass relatively early. Then you have the two women who provoked predatory cats at zoos in Arizona and New York. They could be two of the dumbest amateur actions of all time, not to mention probably the most preventable. Because they were isolated incidents and they didn't end tragically, it kept them from taking home the big trophy. Empowerment is a beaten-to-death catchphrase among amateurs, but it has nowhere near the annoying, false attention-whoring, and dare I say it, destructive nature as the biggest contributor to amateur behavior of 2019. And thus the Amateur of the Year goes to...
BSS, Bumper Sticker Spirituality.
BSS, Bumper Sticker Spirituality, invades Pro Nation daily. In social media, on t-shirts, in packaging things as simple as cereal, in commercials selling everything from tires to apps, even in movies. BSS is a perfect acronym because it means bumper sticker spirituality, of course, but also for the BS it spews forth. Nothing says, I'm not really spiritual and centered, than reminding everyone how spiritual and centered and caring you are, especially by copying and pasting a meme, gif, or quote written by someone who truly contributed to spirituality and kindness, or worse, a nobody who simply spewed forth a few flowery, generally positively received words, then BSS. Ignore it. It's literally worse than saying nothing. Writing and reading BSS is to live in denial. It's putting on a Band-Aid when you've cut your carotid artery. I'm okay, no really. When what you should be saying is, someone help me! If you go through a tough time, and a quote, or reading an inspiring book, or seeing a movie that changes your life and sends a message, or you're talking with a friend or mental and or physical health professional helps you get through it, savor that. Cherish it. Tell someone else, whom you know personally, who might be going through tough times so they can benefit. Write a book. Craft your message. But stop yelling about your Band-Aid from the mountaintop, because you're only hearing yourself talk. Like last year, we'd like to thank all the nominees, but we won't because us pros can't stand them. But we're happy to make fun of a new batch of amateurs next year. Special thanks to Ken Knapsack of the Knapsack Files podcast for the show open voiceover, and also to all the fans who send in emails, comments, and votes for tonight's show. Be assured there are nominees already in play for next year's Emmy Awards. No reason not to hear this podcast, since now it's heard on 12 different podcast platforms, the latest additions being SoundCloud and iHeartRadio. So if you have a friend who you think would dig my valid hilarity and hilarious validity, and they don't listen using the same platform as you, please spread the gospel. You can start them off by sending them to Amazon to download my book, or just have them visit my website, lousantini.com. Go to Amazon, get the book, Amateur Nation, The Decline of Common Sense, Manners, and Social Skills. I'm on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Email me too, lou@lousantini.com. Remember, amateurs, we see you. You're not at home. Don't do life wrong. Go pro. Don't be an amateur. For Amateur Nation, I'm Lou Santini, and this has been a Big Major production.